This is Edge of the Box, a podcast brought to you by WhoScored.com.
Hello, welcome back to Edge of the Box, a podcast by WhoScored.com in association with BetVictor. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined as ever by Jonathan Wilson and treble ruiner Martin Laurence. How are you guys?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Nice of you to ask, Jonathan. I'm well, thanks. Martin, fresh from ruining our treble a few weeks ago.
Right.
How are you?
We'll have words about that later when we come on to it. But yeah, I'm fine, thank you, Dan. I'm fine. Good.
Let's start then with the opening debate. So, Jonathan, of the likely top four, what was the biggest oversight or failure in the transfer market?
I'm sorry. I've answered that with a huge pause if I was unprepared for the question. I am prepared for the question, but I sort of think it's one of those things where you either answer it in about an hour or you don't really answer it at all. So,
which one are you going to do?
Well, we'll go for the hour. You can cut it down. City may regret not getting a striker in. They scored loads of goals so far without a proper striker. Ferran Torres clearly can do the job to an extent, but I think in tougher games that is something that they may miss. But they won the league barely playing Aguero last year, so we'll see. Liverpool, I think generally are sort of short of. I think their squad's a little bit slim, which is why, although I think their first team is perfectly capable of winning the league, they probably don't have the depth to sustain the challenge. Chelsea squad, I think, looks exceptional in all departments. So not Chelsea, I guess, is the easy answer. And Manchester United, I think they do still lack a real quality central midfielder. Somebody who basically does what Pogba does, but doesn't sort of give away soft goals at the same time. And so I would still probably say them because, I think if they'd signed Declan Rice rather than Ronaldo, and I don't think it was ever sort of straight choice, but we were told that they were putting off signing Rice for a year because they didn't want to make three big signings in the same summer. They didn't want that financial pressure. And then they go out and sign Ronaldo and they're spending £500,000 a week on him. So the money clearly was there, but they've chosen to spend on Ronaldo, not on Declan Rice. And that seems potentially damaging to me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about you. I'm excited to talk to you about Ronaldo later on in the show and talk about you after this podcast behind your back. Martin, who are you going for?
I would lean towards the United midfield issue and completely agree. Like someone in the ilk of Declan Rice puts them right in the mix, in my opinion. But obviously, that decision to sign Ronaldo, if anything, it just exacerbates that sort of defensive weakness in the middle of midfield because there's even more pressure now on those players, and it looks certainly at the moment it looks like Fred is the sort of first choice holding midfielder, but it's just not a defensive midfielder for me. Like if he was dribbled past the third most times per 90 last season in the league, you don't really want someone who's easy to dribble past as a defensive midfielder. And of all central midfielders, he gave away possession. He played the fourth most inaccurate passes in his own half. So what do you want from a defensive midfielder? Someone who can keep the ball in their own half and someone who isn't easy to dribble past. And Fred's almost the opposite of that player. So I think he's, without wanting to sort of focus on him too much, an upgrade on him was entirely necessary, I think. You could say McTominay could come into that role. I've said before, I don't really think he's that sitting midfielder anymore either. To my mind, Matic is their only defensive midfielder and he's immobile. So yeah, I just think with the sort of depth of attacking talent they've got, there's more pressure on that protection to the defence. And while they've brought in Varane, and that helps a great deal, we saw against Wolves, and I think we could even see against Newcastle, the ability to counter on them.
Yeah, Fred got swarmed against Wolves, didn't he, at times? Yeah, I thought he had a really difficult day. I don't think it's entirely his fault. I do think he was slightly outnumbered in there, but yeah, I'll make
That's the issue, isn't it?
But that's exactly the point. Yeah. You have all this attacking talent and Varane coming in, people seem to think, you can get away with one holding midfielder plus Pogba. Well, if you're getting overrun by Wolves, you just can't. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to Wolves. So, I know they've lost the first three games, but having seen them, I'm pretty confident they'll be sort of mid-table. But United have to be better than that if they're going to sustain a title challenge or challenge for Champions League. So, that game to me confirmed what I think we all already knew, that you cannot play Pogba as the second deep lying midfielder. He has to have more freedom if he's to be effective. Or maybe somebody who's not Fred alongside him, but somebody would have to be incredibly gifted in that role. Sort of a Kante figure who has incredible energy and reads the game incredibly well, and essentially does the job of two people. And with the best one in the world, Fred is not that, Matic is not that, McTominay is not that, and so that's a big problem.
I think Rice could be that player as well in the future. Like, he's still so young. I think because he's been around for so. What is he? I think he's 22 or 23. Like he's getting better every season. So I think.
Well, he was exceptional against Hungary.
Yeah,
he got that daft booking, and you sort of thought, oh dear. And then 2 minutes later, he's won the ball and set up the goal. Did
it against Germany in the Euros as well, didn't he? He got booked really early in that game and was excellent, like in terms of his concentration and his discipline thereafter. So I think he's got all the tools.
Yeah, I would go along with everything you've said. I think that although Manchester United have obviously had a fantastic window, I look at the way Matic played against Southampton, I look at Fred against Wolves, and I do think that's an oversight that's going to cost them if they do want to be title challengers. Let's go to the trivia then, Martin, before we look at Manchester United against Newcastle. What is the question this week?
Another 2 free sort of £20 free bets up for grabs from courtesy of Bet Victor to people who answer this question correctly in the comments of the video on YouTube. You have to be 18 or over to enter, and we'll reply to the people that win in the comments. But the question is, Steve Bruce has famously only ever beaten Manchester United, I should say, once as a manager. Who scored the goal in that win?
Oh, got this. Know this.
I thought you'd know this one. Yeah, so we'll come back to it.
I mean, I'm going to guess it's a Sunderland player.
No.
That would be. Is it not?
It's recent. It's recent. Yeah, it's recent.
Oh, I've got it. I think I've got it as well. I think I know it. Should we not spoil it now? Should we let the podcast run? Let's not ruin the question.
We'll spoil it later. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll spoil it later. Okay, then. Manchester United against Newcastle, Saturday, 3 p.m. Annoyingly, I've done a few podcasts on the 3 p.m. blackout this week. So, yeah, we won't all be able to tune into Ronaldo's debut. And, Jonathan, I imagine you would have been keen to watch it because from hearing you last podcast...
I'm going to it.
Oh, you go. Oh, you are watching it then. Excellent. Yeah. I mean, you waxed lyrical about him going to City. Do you feel any different about him going to Manchester United?
Well, I think there is a sense he fits United slightly better, but that actually is an indictment of United, that they don't have such a coherent philosophy, and so an individual can make an impact. But I still think it's a terrible move. I mean, there seems to be this desire to turn Old Trafford into this sort of theme park of Ferguson's Manchester United. You get to go and see kind of the bloke who scored the goal in the 2008 Champions League final still sort of wandering about up front. And, oh, look, there on the bench, we've got this bloke who scored in 1999. Yeah, I think he is the manager now. Yeah, no, I'm not really sure. No, I don't know. I don't know what he does. It's a sop to fans. It's sort of giving them a player that they'll get very excited about and that they're very keen to see back. Who quite understandably they have a lot of affection for. But is he really what they need now? Bringing in a 36-year-old on £500,000 a week doesn't seem to me like the best use of resources. He probably will score 20 goals. I'm sure he'll score against Newcastle. But is he going to make them more likely to win big games? I just don't think he does. And his pressing is a big issue. He was in the lowest percentile for pressing of forwards in the top 5 leagues last season. And if you don't press, it's very, very hard to win Champions Leagues. You can get away with it and do it if you're Real Madrid and you've got Modric and Marcelo and Kroos and Benzema and Varane and Sergio Ramos. But even Real Madrid struggled in the league. They couldn't do it consistently. They could pull out moments of brilliance in big games. But to put together something coherent, even they found really difficult. And I think United will find it even harder. And then there's 2 other issues, which is what does it do for development of Mason Greenwood, who I thought was excellent that first game of the season when they beat Leeds. If he's suddenly finding his pitch time dramatically reduced, is he going to develop in the way he should? And secondly, Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes don't seem to play well together.
No.
I'd be slightly cautious of being definitive about that because obviously with a national team, you don't have much time to work together and structures are different. But for Portugal, they have not seemed to play well together. So that would be an immediate concern. Can they find a way of getting the two of them to work well together? So I just think it creates huge amounts of problems. And one of United's issues was that they struggled at times to break down well-organised weaker sides. So you think of the game at West Brom last season, or the game they lost at home to Sheffield. Did they draw? No, they lost at home, didn't they? To Sheffield United.
Yeah, lost to Sheffield United. Yeah.
The game at home against Palace early in the season when Palace picked them off on the break. So maybe it allows them to win one of those that they've been drawing or that they've been losing. Maybe that does add sort of 4 or 5 points. But in terms of the biggest games, I think it creates a huge number of problems.
Yeah, I watched Bruno and Ronaldo very closely in the Ireland game last week, and there's just no link up there at all. But like you say, international football is very different. Jonathan touched on the 20 goals a season that Ronaldo probably guarantees you 20 goals a season, Martin. I don't think since Alex Ferguson's gone that anyone has hit 20 goals a season for Manchester United. So that it does solve that issue, doesn't it? And also the issue, like Jonathan says, about beating the lower teams, because they did struggle at Old Trafford against some of the lesser lights last season.
The last person to score 20 league goals for United was Robin van Persie, so a long time ago. So that is an issue, and you can see why they'd want to solve it. But I think they'd built an attack that was actually seeming to fit. Like the pieces were all coming together, and they had options in reserve as well. I think their attack was the least of their problems. And I completely agree with Jonathan that I just see it as a blocker, not only to Greenwood, but to Rashford as well when he returns. And I think people will say, look, Ronaldo's a striker now, Rashford is basically a left-sided forward, and that's fair enough. But if you're playing, you can't play Ronaldo and Rashford and Pogba and Fernandes and Greenwood. And you don't need to in every game, but I think...
And Sancho.
Yeah, Sancho. Specifically for those young players, why are you blocking their development? Like Greenwood started the season really well. You just signed Sancho. It's almost a relief that Marcus Rashford is injured at the moment, because he doesn't have to weigh up that dilemma. Rashford himself has just come off the back of a very difficult season. So I see it as being potentially relatively damaging for Marcus Rashford personally. I struggle to see how he'll get a huge amount of game time, or the game time that he needs or deserves when he does come back from injury. So yeah, it's unnecessary in my opinion, as much as I completely agree that he'll probably score 20 goals plus, and he might earn them a few more points in those sort of smaller games, so to speak, but I can see him dropping as many, if not more points in the bigger ones, as Jonathan says.
You could argue though, Jonathan, that players like Greenwood and Rashford, if they were asked their opinion, they'd want to work with someone like that for a few years, wouldn't they?
I'm sure they'd say that in public, yeah.
Yeah, for a few months.
Do you not think they would anyway? I feel like they.
I don't know. I mean, I've spoken recently to somebody who spent a couple of seasons playing with Ronaldo, and he said he's actually all right in the dressing room. He's a bit of a prima donna, but you can take the mickey out of him about that, and he actually doesn't mind that. He sort of, he's quite on board with that. So I don't think he's quite as difficult as he can occasionally be made out to be, but I think if you're Mason Greenwood and you're sort of thinking, well, I was expecting to play 25 games this season, and I was thinking this could be a really nice link up, this front three of Rashford coming in from the left and Sancho coming in from the right, and me dropping deep and Bruno Fernandes occasionally going beyond me. And this could be sort of a front three, a front four that could serve United for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And suddenly you're thinking, well, maybe I'll be playing 10 games, and looking forward to the League Cup game away at Doncaster in December or whatever. I think that will start to annoy him. This sort of felt like the season when he was about to really do something big. That that first game of the season seemed to prove that he was ready. And now that's been taken away. So I think he would be frustrated. And I don't know. I mean, would Mason Greenwood learn from Ronaldo? I don't know. Is Ronaldo
exactly what I was going to say? Is
he? I mean, is Ronaldo generous with his time? I think maybe he's more generous with his time than we give him credit for. I'm prepared to believe that is true. But he's still a very, Ronaldo's success comes from incredible self-absorption and a willingness to push himself to extraordinary limits and to be incredibly focused on his own game, which is great in one way, but it's not necessarily great for kids wanting to learn from him. And are they the same sort of player? I mean, there's some similarities to how Ronaldo was 15 years ago. I mean, some, not huge. But Ronaldo now is nothing like Greenwood now. So do they learn from that? I don't know. And if you're playing in a team where you've got a player who, we've seen before, his obsession with personal records, his obsession with winning golden boots means that certainly towards the end of the season, there were times at Real Madrid when he would take what was obviously the wrong option to try and boost his own stats. Is that a healthy thing for a young player to be playing alongside? That suddenly you're not thinking about what's the right pass to score the goal. You're thinking about what's the right thing to do to keep Ronaldo happy. I'm not convinced that's a thing that's developing them in any way.
It's going to be interesting. Martin, how are they going to line up at the weekend? I'm going to assume that Ronaldo's going to play. He's going to start. There's no way they're not going to play. So he's going to be leading the line. Do they have Pogba from the left? Do they have Greenwood on the right and Sancho on the left? Obviously, Bruno will probably be playing behind. How do you think they'll line up against Newcastle? Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. It's a nice first game to have, I would say, with Ronaldo there. Experiment Newcastle. It doesn't come much better than that, in my opinion. Maybe other than Arsenal.
Well, one of the key things is actually Fred, who we touched upon, is unavailable because of this ban that's been sort of imposed by the Brazilian or South American.
Pogba might be deep then. Pogba will be deep.
Yeah, exactly. It's an issue. You can only really, again, we mentioned it before. Can Donny van der Beek get a game? No, he can't. He just can't. You just can't.
Absolutely not.
McTominay's not fit, and Fred is out, and Van der Beek still won't get a game. Matic will come in, maybe rightly so because of his stronger sort of defensive quality, maybe. But Matic will have to play, I think. And yeah, I'd imagine it will still be. Pogba could move forward to the left. I don't know. They're just this sort of game highlights their sort of issues in that department as much as any. That they're weak in that middle of the ground, and Sancho's not fully fit either. So I see Ronaldo starting for sure, personally, and it will be up front. There's no way he ever plays from the left for United, I don't think.
No. And can you remind us of our Ronaldo specials that we talked about last week?
Yeah, so we touched on it last week. The incredible coincidence that Ronaldo's 3 favourite Premier League teams, or the ones that are still in the Premier League, are Aston Villa, West Ham and Newcastle, and those are Manchester United's next 3 games. So that is a remarkable coincidence. So it's got a great chance of hitting the ground running. So we did get a little special priced up by Bet Victor for him to score in all 3 of those games is 6-1. Which, when you consider it, I think Sam mentioned he's 4-9 to score in this game. So he's a very low price to score in each of those games. So 6-1's not too bad. The other one that I like probably more and comes fresh after scoring, obviously, two headers against Ireland, is Ronaldo to score 5+ headers in the Premier League at 7-2, boosted to 7-2. He got 7 in Serie A last season. If you look at the amount of headed goals that Edinson Cavani scored last season in very limited playing time, scored 6 headed goals. Only one player, Calvert-Lewin, scored more, and Cavani only started sort of 15 games or so. So the opportunity to score plenty of headers is certainly there. So for him to score 5 or more headers, 7-2, I think that's a price that I'll be tempted by.
Yeah, I'd say that's almost certain that he's going to score 5. I take it that's Premier League only.
Yeah, Premier League only. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to score 5 headers, isn't it? And I think I was going to say should we look at Newcastle, but probably even the Newcastle fans don't want us to look at Newcastle. So let's move on to the bet builder, Martin. We've got a bet builder for this game.
We do indeed, and we'll start with that man. It's going to be the thing that everyone's betting on this weekend, isn't it? Ronaldo to score anytime. As I mentioned, does enjoy playing against Newcastle. Has only scored more goals against Villa than Newcastle. He's got 5 against Newcastle. One of the second leg of the tip, and one that I probably have to convince both of you on, is both teams to score.
That could score on the break.
Yeah,
so Maximin up against Matic chasing him.
Or Joe Willock breaking late into the box,
exactly.
Not picked up by a
on the
static
counter.
Matic.
Exactly, on the counter, just as Wolves they didn't, but they should have scored. And actually, Newcastle, while their record against United isn't great, and understandably so, they've scored in 8 of their last 9 matches against Manchester United. So they do tend to score in this fixture. So both teams to score, Ronaldo to score. And then we've got 2 bookings. Fabian Schär to get booked. I think he's one of the most nailed-on bookings in the league if he's starting. He started 55 league games for Newcastle and been booked in 21 of them. Booked in 2 of 3 against United as well. He could even play in midfield in this game because it's worth noting that Miguel Almiron is also banned as well as Fred. So they've got issues in midfield as well. Newcastle with Shelvey out. So Schär could move forward or he could play at the back. And the other one is Luke Shaw to be booked. He's never been booked more times against a Premier League opponent than Newcastle. He's been booked 4 times against Newcastle, and he's the one that could come up directly against St Maximin, isn't he, on that flank? So yeah, just to recap it: Ronaldo to score any time, both teams to score, Fabian Schär to be carded, and Luke Shaw to be carded. And that has been boosted from 25 to 1 to 35 to 1. So a big boost from BetVictor. That takes you past that sort of the competition for that particular bet builder. So a good price. Do gamble responsibly. We came very close with the bet builder last week, I should say. Just missed Raheem Sterling to score against Arsenal. He had that 1-on-1 that he missed a decent header as well. So that was a 28 to 1 shot that very close to landing. Hopefully we can go one better this week.
Let's get your prediction while you're there, Martin.
I have gone 3-1.
3-1. Jonathan?
I've gone 4-0, but I'm now thinking that maybe I should have gone 4-1.
I'm glad I've convinced you.
I've sort of thought myself, yeah, you've talked me into believing that United might concede. I'll stick with 4-0. 4-0.
I'm going to stick with my 3-0. All different there. Exciting.
Very exciting.
Right. While we're on the subject of betting, let's bring in our BetVictor man, Sam Boswell, and talk to him about Ronaldo and the Golden Boot. I think the last Premier League podcast we did, we were talking about him going to Manchester City, and then obviously he's ended up at Manchester United. How has that shifted things for BetVictor?
Yeah, I mean, he's come home, hasn't he? It's fantastic. Funny enough, I'm on the road this week. I'm going to a wedding of a really good friend, my friend Kyle. He's a Newcastle fan. I swear he's planned to have his wedding this weekend to avoid the game because punters can't get enough of Cristiano Ronaldo. It's quite rare people get stuck in early doors. He's 4-9 to score any time with us. That's been popular. The first goal scorer bet at 2-1 has been popular as well. Will he start? Will he not? Well, I'll leave that for you guys to obviously have chatted over and continue to chat about. Be interesting to see. But the interesting side is the Golden Boot, isn't it? He's a massive contender there, you'd have to think. Personally, I think looking at the stats, I'm not sure I'd want to be backing him at 5-1 when you've got the likes of Mo Salah in there at 9-2. Harry Kane, 6-1. Lukaku still heads the betting, though, 11-4 for the Chelsea man. And I can understand why we've priced him like that. He is going to be the main man for everything. Salah at least does have competition at Liverpool in terms of the other players around him and the likes of Jota. Firmino, when he's back, is perhaps not as much of a goal scorer, but he's there to tap them in as well. And, of course, Sadio Mane, who's fantastic. Harry Kane, 6-1. The Spurs man obviously had a slightly disjointed start to the season with the transfer speculation, but he's bound to be there or thereabouts. Fascinating to get your guys' views on who you think will come out on top. That market is very fluid, very changeable. Still 4 places and quarter of the odds.
Yeah, first off, commiserations to your friend for 1 being a Newcastle fan and 2 for getting married. But just looking at the Golden Boot, as you were talking there, I quite fancy Salah, to be honest, just because of the Anfield factor of those 4. But we'll see what happens. Has Ronaldo going to Manchester United done anything to move the title odds? Has it helped Manchester United in the bookies' eyes?
You can't help but be convinced that Ronaldo is going to be a good signing for them. There's been the odd comment to try and I think get some clickbait out of it, but it is bound to be a positive. They're still 5-1. And when you think Liverpool is sat there at 9-2, now if you match up those 2 squads, maybe on paper first 11 Liverpool have got the better side, but I'd be absolutely convinced now United have got unreal strength in depth. You imagine their bench, and when they pick up a few injuries, obviously a lot of these title contenders are going to be playing European football, going into the latter stages of cups. You need a decent squad. And to my mind, Liverpool 9-2 and United 5-1, very similarly priced. I'd much rather be of Manchester United. I think they're the complete package. The only weakness you could argue with United in comparison to Liverpool is possibly the experience of the manager. Jurgen Klopp's obviously won a major title in terms of being with Liverpool. He knows the league very well. Ole's still arguably inexperienced, but he's definitely got the better tools, in my opinion, at the disposal. So I think as far as our odds makers have got it, I think they've got it the wrong way around, but they're probably professing to be the expert. Chelsea 11-4, obviously have looked fantastic. I thought they did really well to grind out the draw with 10 men away at Liverpool, and at times looked very dangerous to nick the 3 points. A big well done, by the way, to you guys who landed another winning bet on that game. It was a couple of weeks ago now, but I've certainly not forgotten that you've taken yet more money off BetVictor. And City remain the 5-4 favourites. Obviously, didn't manage to sign that striker. Be very interesting to see how they get on in the absence of Harry Kane or Cristiano Ronaldo.
Just before you shoot, Sam, I'm going to go back to the guys and ask them about the order. Obviously, you probably haven't picked this order, but the BetVictor order for the Golden Boot is Lukaku, Salah, Ronaldo, Kane. Would you keep that the same?
Do you know what? I probably would have Kane ahead of Ronaldo, because I think Ronaldo, we might see second coming of Ronaldo. I don't think he's going to play 90 minutes every week. They're going to have European runs to go on as well. He might be the fittest player in the world, but he's still an aging player. Harry Kane for Spurs will continue to grind out the results, and I just think he's on everything, isn't he? So for my eye, I'd rather be taking Kane ahead of Ronaldo. I think Lukaku is the right favourite, and I'd have Salah probably in there as well. So just those two I'd swap round, but I'm looking forward to hearing what the other guys have to say. As ever, we'd urge everyone to continue to gamble responsibly and enjoy this fantastic Premier League season.
Excellent, and hopefully you enjoy the wedding at the weekend as well, and hopefully Jonathan and I can take Bet Victor to the cleaners this week, because you cannot rely on Martin Laurence at all, as we learned last week.
Enjoy it, guys. Looking forward to the rest of the show.
Jonathan, would you go along with the Bet Victor Golden Boot order of Lukaku, Salah, Ronaldo and Kane? If you had to pick an order for the four of them, would you go with that, or would you go something else?
I'm happy with Lukaku first, definitely. Sorry, what was that order? Lukaku, Salah,
Ronaldo, Kane.
Yeah. Yes, I'll say yes.
Yeah, stick with it.
Well, I mean, Ronaldo could nick second, I guess. I mean, he could win it, obviously. I was sort of thinking at 36, how many games is he actually going to play? But I think he may need to be managed a bit towards the end of the season, especially if United are still in Europe. So that possibly counts against him slightly. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Maybe Kane. Maybe Kane higher, actually. Maybe we can. Yeah. Well, Tottenham don't have either Champions League or Europa League, do they? They have the other European competition. So maybe Kane. I know he made a remarkable start in the Conference League, but I suspect he won't play too many of those. He'll be able to have a bit of a rest, at least until sort of, if he gets to the quarterfinals, say. So, okay, let's go Lukaku, Kane, Salah, Ronaldo in that order.
Okay. I'm going to go Salah, Lukaku, Ronaldo, Kane. I feel like Tottenham won't be particularly free scoring under Nuno.
That's an annoyingly good point. Yeah.
This is what I'm here for. Jonathan brings some sensibility to the podcast. Yeah. I do think Lukaku will score most games, but I don't think Chelsea will be massively free scoring. I think they'll win a lot of games 1-0, 2-0 as well. So I just think Salah will score a lot of goals at Anfield, takes penalties. I'm going to stick Salah top, I think. Martin?
Yeah, I've got the exact same order as you. And again, penalties crucial in that. I don't think Lukaku will be on penalties. I think Jorginho will keep those. Salah will be on penalties. And I just think I'm still slightly concerned that Chelsea won't create the amount of chances that Liverpool and Man City will. And that rings true of Tuchel's time at the club. I think since he arrived, they're actually 10th for goals scored, which is remarkable. But that obviously is why they've brought Lukaku in. This is a great stat for you. Since Tuchel arrived, Newcastle have scored more goals than Chelsea, which is bizarre.
Really?
Yeah, one more goal. So, and Man City have scored twice as many goals as Chelsea in that time. Obviously, like I said, that's why they've signed Lukaku. But they do only rank 5th for big chances created under Tuchel in the Premier League. So I just think maybe with the sort of organisation that he has and that he sort of leans upon, and that may well win them the title, that might restrict Lukaku a little bit in terms of reaching the same heights. I think it will be very close, but I do think, personally, I'm leaning slightly towards Mo Salah. So yeah, Salah, Lukaku, Ronaldo, Kane for me.
Fair to say that they'll all score goals, won't they? I don't think we need to worry about that. I reckon, yeah. Let's look at our next game. Then it's Chelsea versus Aston Villa. Villa make it into one of our big game previews for the first time at the Edge of the Box podcast this season. I mean, I'm sure it's not because we're Aston Villa. I'm sure it's because we're playing Chelsea. But there we go. You touched on Jorginho and penalties. Is Jorginho going to play that many games now that they've signed Saul? Is it Saul? Saul? I always never know what to say with this. My Spanish isn't my strong point. Saul.
They've
signed Saul Niguez, isn't it? Is that his real name?
Niguez, yeah.
Niguez. Yeah.
Niguez,
okay, let's leave the Spanish. But yeah, they've signed a guy from Atletico Madrid to play in midfield, Martin. Was he even needed?
I think I looked at it and I thought, I think Jorginho's the almost the nailed on starter for me personally. I looked at it and I thought maybe it's Kovacic. I just had a feeling for some reason that Tuchel sort of didn't fancy Kovacic as much as Lampard did. But then I looked into it. So do I. I looked into it and I'm completely wrong. Basically, I think I was swayed by the fact that he was injured for 5 games last season when Tuchel came in. But I think he started all but 2 of the games he was available for under Tuchel in the league. So maybe it's not him. And then I looked into it. It could be Kante, just because he's picking up an increasing number of injuries. I think he started 45 games since the start of the 2019-20 season. So that's 79 Premier League games available. And I think he started 45, which is not very many. And you'd expect if he's fit that he starts every game. But he is having more and more of these niggling injuries. So I think that might have influenced a bit. He's been injured this season and he may well not play this game at the weekend. He's struggling. So maybe that's part of it. I would say about Saul, I think he sort of came through and looked really, really promising. He sort of had a season of regression last season at Atletico and for Spain as well. I didn't realise he hadn't been capped for Spain since 2019.
Didn't go to the Euros.
Sort of surprised that he didn't go to the Euros, but then I looked at it and he's not been capped for quite some time. So he's sort of fallen down the pecking order. Started 22 league games for Atletico last season. Very much Marcos Llorente has gone past him for both club and country. And that was despite Thomas Partey leaving. So he sort of fell out of favour a little bit, hasn't really kicked on. But I think what you get from him is incredible work rate. And under Thomas Tuchel, that can only be a good thing, can't it? So he'll be a very useful player. I would liken it to the Kovacic deal when they signed him on loan from Real Madrid with the option to buy. People were sort of surprised when they exercised that option because he didn't have a particularly standout season in that loan season, Kovacic. And I think it was about 40 million. And I think that's similar for what it is for Sal. So it'll be interesting. The one thing that'll be, I think it's an option to buy rather than an obligation to buy. And the other thing to consider is that they've got Conor Gallagher and who else out on loan?
Big Billy
Gilmore out on loan. So how they get on this season may well influence whether he stays permanently. But for this season, I think just mainly because of those sort of fitness concerns over Kante, he'll be a useful addition for sure. Just a case of will he be happy with not playing particularly regularly? Because I don't think he is in their sort of top 2 or 3 personally.
Do need to give myself a slap on the wrist because I didn't mention Billy Gilmore the last time the 3 of us were together, and then I forgot last week as well, but luckily Raj brought him up, so Billy Gilmore did feature in last week's podcast. So yeah, naughty Jonathan, we've just been talking about Manchester United central midfield and their lack of options. I suppose we're saying like was Saul needed, I'm struggling with that name. Now Tuchel likes to rotate. They've now got 4 very good central midfielders to rotate, and that's only going to be a good thing for them, isn't it? Yeah,
I mean, I think he's a player they didn't need, but if you can pick him up for free, I mean, okay, you're paying his wages, but it's cheap, essentially. Why would you not do it? And so he's versatile. He can play at the back of midfield, he can play further forward. I think he could arguably, play wide if you really needed him to.
Yeah, he can.
So, he's just a good squad player who's dipped a bit last season. I mean, I know he only started 22 games last season, but he did come off a bench in 11 as well in the league, so he was regularly involved. It's just a useful option to have to take some of the pressure off.
Jonathan, the international break's been an absolute joke. Villa we've talked about players missing already. Villa have now got the 2 Emmys sat in Croatia because, when there's COVID going on and things like that, it makes complete sense to go and travel to another country in between, doesn't it? Chelsea have also got a doubt with Lukaku as well. So, there's a lot going on in the international break, a lot been affected.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how South American players have to choose, are they going to play for their clubs this season or for their countries? Because if you go away for 10 days to play the 3 games, then you come back and you have to quarantine for a fortnight, and then it probably takes you another fortnight to get up to speed. Well, there's another international break.
Yeah.
So, okay, there's maybe a bit around Christmas where you might get some club games in, but fundamentally, I just don't think you can do both. I think that's a particular issue with Argentinian players who seem to feel this great patriotic need to win Messi's World Cup, which I kind of get and I quite support, and I feel very sorry for players being put in that position. And it's completely the fault of CONMEBOL and FIFA. CONMEBOL didn't have to play that Copa America in the summer. It was an extra tournament. It wasn't part of the original schedule. The Brazilian squad, the Argentinian squad before the tournament said, why don't we use this to play World Cup qualifiers? And that's clearly what they should have done. It was just this desperation for the cash that Copa America brings that led them to play it. But it's now. I think there's already going to be 3 qualifiers not on a FIFA date. They're going to have to just pick domestic-based players for. And then when you're getting health officials running on the pitch during games, I mean, it just makes the whole thing a farce. And then you have to blame FIFA for that as well, for not taking a stronger line and sort of working out how can we do this and working out a way to make this possible. So I got sympathy for pretty much everybody apart from the confederations. Yeah, sympathy for the players, sympathy for the clubs, sympathy for the countries.
Sympathy for Martin and myself as well, because the 2 Emmys missing is going to be a blow for Villa. It'd be nice if Lukaku was injured in a way, wouldn't it, Martin? Probably not bad to watch, but I mean, it would be nice if he decided to have the weekend off.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it. He needs a rest, I think, already. But
I want to make the injury worse. Exactly,
don't exacerbate things. No, yeah. But it's difficult for Villa at the start because we've been affected by a lot of injuries and COVID as well recently for the Brentford game. Haven't seen anything like what you might consider to be the best 11, and obviously won't again this weekend. And I looked into it. Villa have already used 21 players in 3 games. It took them until February last season to use 21 players in the Premier League.
Is that just league?
Yeah, used 21 players.
21
mad,
players,
isn't it? Yeah. So when you obviously the start of the season, the fixture list looked pretty kind to Villa. Watford, Newcastle, Brentford. You look at only 4 points from those games, but really, really disrupted start. Ollie Watkins hasn't started yet. Leon Bailey hasn't started yet. I'm hopeful that both could start this weekend. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting game to see. I think naturally those two will come in, and it will be interesting to see if Watkins and Ings partner one another in a front two. I think it could be a 4-4-2 this weekend. But there's a lot of sort of injury doubts as well. Ezri Konsa went off late against Brentford. McGinn's obviously back from COVID. I'd expect Jacob Ramsey to be back as well, but not sure yet. So, yeah, we're thin on the ground again, but hopefully once the 2 Emmys come back, Everton after this week, I think, will be looking something closer to a full squad. Yeah,
it's been a real up and down start for Villa. I mean, a win, a loss and a draw, I'd probably say is pretty expected with everything that's going on. There's going to be that element of inconsistency, especially when you are having to rebuild again because the player that your team was built round has left. Have Villa got any chance on Saturday, Jonathan?
Some, but not much. No, I mean, if Lukaku doesn't play, obviously that helps. But you sort of think that Chelsea probably have enough anyway. I mean, there was a game towards the end of last season. Was it even the last day of last season?
Last game, yeah.
Yeah, we beat them, yeah.
Where Villa won. So, they know they can do it. But, Chelsea aren't distracted by an upcoming Champions League final. So, I mean, yeah, there's a chance. But Chelsea, quite understandably, are overwhelming favourites.
Unbeaten against Chelsea last season, Villa. Drew at Stamford Bridge as well when Lampard was still in charge then, or was Tuchel in by then? I think it was still Lampard at that point. It was around Christmas, so yeah,
December time.
1-1. My prediction is not 1-1 or a Villa win this time. I have gone for 2-0 to Chelsea. Jonathan?
Yeah, snap 2-0 Chelsea.
Martin?
3-1.
3-1 Chelsea.
We'll get a goal.
Yeah,
Watkins is back. We'll get a goal.
To be fair, we do usually score. Villa do usually score. I have to remember not to say we on this podcast, and I really struggle with it. But yeah, okay, excellent. Let's move on to Leeds against Liverpool, and we kind of touched on it at the start of the show, Jonathan. But will Liverpool fans be disappointed with the summer window? Yeah,
I think so. Particularly because I think they are an ageing squad, and obviously ageing squad. I think I might be saying last season if you calculate per minute play, they had the oldest squad in the Premier League. We know the front three are all 29 and maybe starting to look a little bit stale. And obviously Jota coming in has helped shake that up. But yeah, I think particularly with losing Wijnaldum, I can see that there'd be a sense that they probably do need another midfielder. But yeah, they do have players back from injury, and you'd assume that this season the injury crisis wouldn't be as bad.
Yeah, you'd think Thiago might step up as well a bit more. Wasn't used loads last season, Martin. I don't think we really ever saw the best of Thiago. In some ways, could he be the Wijnaldum replacement?
I don't. Not in terms of a direct replacement.
No, they're playing instead of him.
For what it's worth, genuinely, Thiago is probably my favourite player outside of the Premier League before he signed. I love Thiago. So I was disappointed by his first season. Obviously had injury problems, and then he was basically forced to play in that sort of almost like that Fabinho role where his sort of the defensive side of his game was exposed because Fabinho was playing at the back. Henderson was out for a long time, so it wasn't helpful. So maybe with all those players back, if they do come back, then he can flourish a little bit more. Again, another game affected by the ban. Alisson and Fabinho are both out, so Thiago could end up playing in that sort of defensive midfield role, or it could be Henderson. Probably more likely Henderson, but it's a big season for Naby Keita as well. Whether he's involved because they had a military coup. Or attempted military coup in Guinea as well. So it's all kicked off over the international break. So whether he's involved, I don't know. Harvey Elliott picked up a knock on under-21 duty, so they do look short. And I do think that's an issue. And I also think they're short of an option up front as well. I just think maybe Firmino, I wouldn't say he's finished, but he's certainly on the wane. Whether that's the case for Mane or not is unclear. I think Salah's still reliable and Jota's a very good option, but maybe they did need to freshen that up a little bit as well. So I do think they're short, and I do think Liverpool fans have a right to be disappointed because that's 2-3 windows in a row where they haven't really strengthened at all. Thiago last summer was obviously a strong signing, but they haven't done a lot, and it is sort of beginning to show, I'd say, in their performances.
There's all sorts going on in this international break. I didn't know about that military coup. Is there any country that hasn't been affected by something in this international break? There's just absolutely all sorts going on. Jonathan, Leeds have finally got their man. Dan James has joined. In some ways, possibly to give up and have a squad number reshuffle at Manchester United if they felt they had to get rid of him to do their squad numbers. But he's finally there. What do you think of that?
Well, I never thought that move to United was going to work. It just sort of felt like too big a leap at the wrong time. And we know he has talent. We saw that at Swansea, and you sort of thought, well, what's he adding to United? And what he was adding was pace. And they obviously are a team very based on the counter attack, but he never really looked comfortable there. I think the fact Bielsa's been chasing him for 2 and a bit years is Bielsa doesn't do anything without doing the research. So Bielsa obviously sees something in him he can mould. More than just the pace, and so hopefully this can aid his development, and he can go back to being the player he was in that final season at Swansea. And I think Leeds as well. I think they have looked maybe a little bit short of wits going forward. I mean, that Burnley game, they did seem to get drawn central a lot. So I think it makes sense, and hopefully it'll work out.
Yeah, I think he'll suit Bielsa and he'll suit Leeds. He started very well at Manchester United, but then he just, I don't know.
Did he? I just don't think he did. He scored a couple.
I remember him scoring a goal.
Yeah, he scored the same goal about 3 times. But
yeah. That goes down as a good start in the Bardell.
Yeah, he was there. I think even if you ask the Swansea fan, he was never a Manchester United quality player. No, I don't think he ever will be. And that's not to say he's a bad player, but he was really all pace. Was it against? He scored that goal on the counter for Swansea. I can't remember if it was in the cup against City or something. I don't know why that's coming in my head, but he scored a really good goal in the cup on the counter where he just sprinted the length of the pitch, and that sort of shot him into the spotlight.
It was sort of a classic Manchester United signing of the time, wasn't it? They sort of said, "Oh, we're going to sign youth. The future is youth. Oh, here's a young player who's doing quite well. There's 20 million we'll have him," without any ever sort of thinking about how he might fit in or.
Yeah, one thing I was going to touch on, because it was the Manchester United-Newcastle game, just a bit of reminiscing. Do you remember when Manchester United were linked to Sean Longstaff for like 40 million on that topic?
Yeah, exactly.
Where they were just linked to young players who'd only played a handful of games. And it's like, these guys are doing quite well. Sean Longstaff for that amount of money. But yeah, Dan James, I don't think he was ever that level. I think the one thing you can look at is he's very good for Wales. So in a team that's not as strong and doesn't have all the stars around him, he's very, very good for Wales, very effective for them. So, and again, pertinent to this week, Rafinha's out, so he could start. He could start. So there's a natural place for him in the team this weekend because of that ban. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. It'll be interesting to see the game time he gets because Jack Harrison and Rafinha are both very good wingers. So how often he plays, he'll rotate for sure. Look, they've been after him for a long time. They've spent a fair whack. So he'll play, but I'm interested to see how that works because Rafinha has to
also
play.
The wingers at Leeds, both wingers and fullbacks at Leeds have to do a phenomenal amount of work. So
yes,
I think
and he does do that.
having extra bodies there to help cover that, I think, can only be a good thing.
He's very hardworking as well. So I think that will be part of the reason they looked at him as well.
I don't know whether I'm having a complete mind blank of the Leeds side, but could Rafinha not move inside?
I think he does.
Kind of plays at 10.
His threat. No? I think his threat. He's a dribbler, isn't he? A direct threat getting to the byline. So I don't think he's that.
Well, they did play that 3-3-1-3 against Burnley, didn't they? So maybe that does open a position for him. But I haven't seen him do that, so I don't know. But conceivably, that could work with him running beyond Bamford.
Yeah, I could even. That's pure speculation, but I could even see him if they are going to play a 3. Then he could do a role as a wing back. I think. With his work rate and with his pace, he might be able to fill in there occasionally. So maybe he'll play in different positions. But yeah, I think Jack Harrison's a really underrated winger, personally. So
he had a good season, Jack Harrison, good goal output, good assist output as well. I think, but Dan Jones will be a useful signing for Leeds. I think he'll do well. I think he suits Bielsa more than he suits being lost at Manchester United. He'll get some confidence back, and I think he'll be a good signing. Let's have the score predictions then, Jonathan.
I know Liverpool have got loads of players out, but so have Leeds. I mean, they've also got Klich, Firpo, Koch, all probably out. So I'm going 3-1 Liverpool.
We nearly had a cock out.
I know, Koch probably out. I saw your face. Close. I was like, he's
so close. I was ready for it. so close. Martin, what was your prediction?
I've gone for 2-2. I fancy Leeds. They drew basically with all the big teams at home last season. Terrible away in most of those fixtures, but I think they drew with City, United, Liverpool, and Arsenal. Actually, I think they had about 64% possession against Liverpool last season at home. It was a really interesting game. Liverpool just let them have the ball basically and sprung on the counter. So it'll be interesting to see if that pans out again. But Jurgen Klopp has spoken, as everyone has, about how difficult it is to play against Leeds, and I think it'll be the case again. So 2-2.
I've gone Leeds 0, Liverpool 1 this week. I fancy Liverpool to sneak a win. I don't know why I said it like that, but yeah, that's what I got. Just because it was so different to what.
Thought you were going to furnish that prediction with something.
I was going to say Salah penalty, but I'm obsessed with Salah penalties for some reasons. Honestly,
that worked last week.
It did. Talking of things that worked last week, Martin. We move on now to the just a minute section, and there's been a change in the leaderboard, hasn't there?
Well, yeah, there's been a very, very good week, it has to be said, for Dan Bardell. 4 correct scores, which is very good, and then an extra 3 correct results, so 15 points. It's more than you managed in the first 2 weeks combined.
Well, I needed a big week. I responded. Yeah, I needed a big week.
You did. So you've joint top with Who Scored. You got 10, and Jonathan now slightly behind, 3 behind. 26 points for Jonathan overall after 9 last week. So 29 for Who Scored or myself and Dan, and 26 for Jonathan. So still very tight, all to play for.
But hang on, I've got 9 points, 8 points, 9 points. So
yeah, consistency is key. Over the course of the season, you can see that panning out nicely.
Yeah, and also if there is another season of this nonsense, and if we do this again, can I suggest that a better way of doing the scoring is as we have it now, but an additional point if you're within 1 goal of the right result. So if you say it's going to be 1-1 and one team wins 1-0, you get a point. And if you say it's going to be 3-0 and it's 4-0, you get 2 points. That would seem a fairer way of doing it, rather than allowing these random things.
Quite convoluted.
I mean, you do algorithms that nobody.
The one thing I did consider,
give points values to players' performances.
The one thing I did consider,
1 point.
The one thing I did consider is if you tipped one team to win and the other team won, you get minus a point. But I think we're a bit late in the season to be making these changes.
You can't change it once
it's 3 games. Yeah.
What I'm saying is, for the future, that is how I would change it.
Yeah.
It would it would take out some of the random elements of
documenting
4 correct results in 1 week.
Yeah. Fair enough.
International break came at the wrong time for me. I just tipped it in my stride, and then the international break comes along and breaks it for me. Let's do the just a minute section then. And Jonathan, as always, we'll have you go first.
Palace v Spurs, first game. That is the one you want to do, is it?
Yeah, yes,
okay,
please.
Thanks. I think that point at West Ham was a very important one for Palace after a really sort of rocky start to the season. And that last sort of half hour, 35 minutes at London Stadium, they did play very, very well. They're still without Elise Eze Milivojevic, which is a big problem. This game last season was really the beginning of the big problems for Mourinho. Went 1-0 up and then decided to try and hold it, invited pressure, Palace got back into it. So that finished 1-1. It's the other way around at Tottenham last season. They won it 4-1. I suspect it might be a bit closer to that this time. Lots of players out, as we've been saying, all the way through because of the South American bans. So no Ramirez, no Lo Celso, no Sanchez. They could also be without Bergwijn and Son, but you still think they'd have enough against Palace. So even though they haven't scored more than one in the game this season yet, I'm saying 2-1 to Spurs.
Martin, what have you gone for?
I've gone for 1-1. I do think those injuries and those potential absences will be telling in this game. I think Palace sort of started their season really last week with some promising moments in the second half, and at home I fancy them to get a point.
I've gone for 1-1 as well. Could be a key differential in the title race or the relegation battle for Jonathan in the Just a Minute section. All right, Martin, you've got the first relegation 6-pointer of the season, I would say. Arsenal against Norwich. Off you go.
Yep, so you've just taken my first line of my preview. So an early relegation 6-pointer sees bottom of the league. Arsenal host Norwich in 19th, and the pressure is mounting on Mikel Arteta to get a result. He's boosted by the turn to training of Thomas Partey, which is timely to say the least, given Granit Xhaka's suspension and injury to Mohamed El-Neni. Emil Smith-Rowe returned unwell from England under-21 duty and is a doubt, so Martin Ødegaard should keep his place after a strong international break. Ben White and Gabriel have both played behind closed doors games and may well be the favoured pairing moving forward. After a storming Carabao Cup debut, calf problems may prevent Christos Solis from making his league debut again for Norwich, who are ahead of Arsenal by virtue of the solitary goal scored between these clubs, coming from the penalty spot against Leicester last time out. The Canaries were perhaps unfortunate to lose that game, and we'll see this as an opportunity to kickstart their season against a wounded opponent. That said, Arsenal haven't lost at home to Norwich since 1992, with Aubameyang scoring twice in both meetings between these sides last season, or the season before last. Anything short of a home win could be curtains for Arteta, but I think they'll scrape it. I think we have gone for 3-1 Arsenal, so not really scraping it, to be fair.
Yeah, 3-1 from Who Scored. I've gone for 2-1 to Arsenal. First time I've predicted them to win this season. Jonathan?
3-1.
3-1. Full house.
I think the international break has come at the right time for them to just have a bit of a reset and kind of remember it is Norwich they're playing and not their own demons.
Right, your next game, Jonathan, is Brentford against Brighton.
Yes, so Brentford have had a fantastic start to life in the Premier League, unbeaten so far, 5 points. And this is one of those slightly odd games that I think if it had come later in the season, it might have been problematic for them. But it's one of those games that doesn't have the glamour of playing Arsenal at home. As it is, just a second home game. I'm sure it'll be packed. I'm sure the atmosphere will be great. Maybe not quite as great as that Friday night against Arsenal. But you think that will still lift them. Brighton, as we expected, or as I expected after their sort of underperformance against XG last season, start the season really well with 2-1 wins. Lost at home then to Everton, but I think Everton are actually pretty good this season, so not too concerned about that. Their big problem is the absence of a left back, with Dan Burn out and Solly March, who had been covering for him, also out. So it probably means Modere coming in at left wing back if they do stick with the three. On the other side, though, Tariq Lamptey should return or could return after 9 months out. Aaron Connolly is also a doubt. So I can see this being pretty tight. I'm going to go 1-1.
I've gone 1-1 as well. It'd be nice to see Lamptey back. He was an exciting player last season. And what have Who Scored gone for, Martin?
Full house, 1-1.
3 1-1s. Excellent. You've got Leicester versus Manchester City, Martin.
Yeah, meeting for the second time in just over a month. Man City will be aiming to avenge their defeat to the Foxes in the Community Shield. They've been rocked by the news that both Ederson and Gabriel Jesus could be banned for this game after the Brazilian FA invoked that ruling. Raheem Sterling and Riyad Mahrez will compete to replace the informed Jesus in the team, but Zach Steffen is in quarantine following a positive COVID test, so could see Scott Carson in goal for Man City for only the second time. Exciting. Elsewhere, Aymeric Laporte suffering from fatigue, so John Stones may get his first start. Brendan Rodgers is hopeful of having both Johnny Evans and Yannick Vestergaard available following a torrid run of injuries at the back. There's a boost following a tough start to the season for club and country for Jalal Soyuncu. Ryan Bertrand has recovered from COVID to vie for a place at left back, but Ricardo Pereira is out again. Leicester fans are still awaiting a first start for Patson Daka, but given Jamie Vardy's record against Man City, scoring 9 goals against Pep Guardiola's side, including 2 hat-tricks, that's unlikely to come this weekend. This will be a test of City's title credentials against a familiar foe, but one that they should just about pass. Gone for 2-1 Man City.
I've gone for 2-0 Man City. Jonathan?
2-1 Manchester City.
2-1. Be nice to see Scott Carson again. Feel like I haven't seen him since I once bumped into him at the German Christmas market in Birmingham in about 2008, 2009 maybe. So it'd be nice to see him on the pitch.
You've got a little bit of Scott Carson about you, to be fair, Ben. Right?
Have I?
Yeah. If you took a big gap out the front of your teeth.
I thought you meant he was at the third choice presenter. I was
I mean, that would be fairer, to be honest. I think, Jonathan. I look like Scott Carson.
Jeez, I mean, come on.
There's been some bad lookalikes in the comments about you recently. Don't try and say that, mate. What was your one?
Oh, I've had a wish version of basically every player under the sun. Conor Hourihane, Buendia, Pedro, Emre Can, all good-looking chaps.
Emre Can, I saw look more like Emre Can than anything.
You can't claim Emre Can.
I can. Right, we've completely got away from the podcast now. Southampton, West Ham for you, Jonathan.
Yeah, I don't really understand either of these two teams. I'm kind of guessing about this. Southampton were really impressive, I thought, against United. Probably should have won that game, ended up drawing at 1-1. Having had an awful start against Everton, despite taking the lead. Then against Newcastle, needed a very, very late equaliser. Which only came about because of Newcastle was giving the ball away repeatedly and a desperate challenge from Lascelles. So they have taken 2 points from 3 games, but without being either bad or good, particularly in them. West Ham, scored 10, conceded 5 in the 3 games so far, picked up 7 points, looked great going forward, looked wobbly at the back. The game against Palace, I think, was a return of a familiar Moyes trope of taking the lead and then struggling to hold on to it. Last season, they did their best to chuck away 2-3-0 leads. So I think, I don't know if it's controlling the game or fitness in the latter stages can be an issue for West Ham. Stuart Armstrong and Shane Long both out for West Ham. Zuma not ready. Southampton, Zuma not yet ready for West Ham. These 2 games last season were 0-0 and 3-0 to West Ham. I think they'll win this again 2-1.
I've gone for 2-1 as well. Shane Long back at Southampton.
Yeah,
I thought he was long. I thought he was. Excuse the pun. I thought he was longer. Jeez, what's who's
another one? Laurence Karius is back at Liverpool. It's really blew my mind.
Is it?
Wow,
God. Yeah. Bloody hell.
They will never get rid of him.
I don't think. What is he? 5th choice? 6th choice?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
What WhoScored gone for, Martin?
Differential alert. 2-2.
Nice.
Draw.
2-2.
Yeah,
interesting. Could Southampton draw 2-2 for the second week? Really, I think they did draw 2-2 last week, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, and West Ham.
And West Ham. That's why I did it. That's the entire reason. Yeah.
Well, wait there. You can't say you did it because usually it's who scored. You can't just say it's you now.
Yeah, that's why we did it.
You've got Watford against Wolves, Martin, as your final one.
Following their opening day triumph over Aston Villa, Watford have fallen to back-to-back defeats without scoring, and Xisco is yet to settle on his favoured attack. He also has selection dilemmas in midfield after the club signed no less than 5 central midfielders over the summer. Moussa Sissoko and Ozan Tufan, the latest to join the ranks. The host could have a fully fit squad to choose from this weekend, though. Wolves have now been incredibly unfortunate in defeat in 3 matches as underdogs this season, but can have no excuses as the favourites for the trip to Vicarage Road. Across matches with Leicester, Tottenham and United, Bruno Laga's side have conceded just 27 shots. Only City have conceded fewer and attempted 57 themselves without once finding the net. With that in mind, they are likely to remain unchanged unless there are concerns over Romain Saïs' participation, having been stranded at Morocco's team hotel after that attempted military coup. But having said that, Raul Jimenez is now out as well, so Fabio Silva will probably come in. The turnaround of players at Watford is highlighted by the fact that all 6 of the goal scorers against Wolves over the last 3 years have since left the club. Gerard Deulofeu and Abdoulaye Doucouré, the match winners in the last meeting. Surely a matter of time before Wolves get a deserved win, but they'd take an undeserved one at this point and should have the edge. I'm going 1-0. We are going 1-0 Wolves.
I've gone 2-0 to Wolves. They're going to come good this weekend. Jonathan?
I've gone 2-1 to Wolves.
2-1 to Wolves. I've just noticed whilst I was checking what my Watford Wolves prediction was that I gave the wrong score prediction for the Villa game. No, Chelsea I actually had 2-1 down. So I'll go with what I said 2-0. But I'll go with what I originally said on the WhatsApp message to you, Martin, just in case you thought I'd change my mind. I don't want to change.
It's all in the graphic. It's all in the graphic.
Yeah, lovely. Jonathan, then finish us with Everton against Burnley.
But this game last season, I think, was one of the matches that really brought scrutiny to Carlo Ancelotti's reign. The Everton were pretty awful for the first half. Found themselves conceded 2 in that time. Lost the game 2-1. Those goals coming from Wood and McNeil. There's a 1-1 draw at Turf Moor. But I think this season it should be different. Everton have started incredibly well, 7 points from 3 games. I think their signings have been very astute with Damari Gray and Andros Townsend. And Salomon Rondon is a player I absolutely adore. I think he's a great player for a mid-table Premier League club. Good in the air, holds the ball up well. Great as playing as a very isolated striker. And he may get his debut from the start because Calvert-Lewin is down with a quad problem. Would the two ever play together? I'm not sure, but it's good to have the option. And Rondon and Benitez have worked together. This is the third club, so Benitez clearly rates him. Burnley have started very poorly, but they did that last season, taking 2 points from the first 8. I can't really see how they get anything from this, so I'm going to say 2-0 to Everton.
I've got exactly the same, 2-0 to Everton. What WhoScored done, Martin? You're on mute, Martin.
I think he should be docked a point every time he does that.
He's poor. It's very twice he's poor. Twice he's really.
I did twice last time as well. So
I heard a lawnmower. I think that sound is near me because there's a lawnmower going on. So I'm trying to be considerate to the pod in general. But yeah.
Okay, we'll let you off.
Okay.
Go on then, Martin. What's the WhoScored prediction?
We've gone a bit more cautious. 1-0 to Everton.
1-0 to Everton. Excellent. So that concludes the Just a Minute section. Just before we go, then let's have a recap of last week's treble tip. That was our first one. Was that the first one that we've blown?
Yeah, I do want to highlight something, Dan, before you speak a little bit too much, because your initial tip was 0-0 Leeds Burnley, which didn't come in. And I said, you weren't allowed it because I had to rein you in again, like usual. And I said, we'll just do it as a draw, which it was. So
fair.
Don't get too ahead of yourself. And also, my tip was Man United, Wolves, both teams to score. How Wolves didn't score. Incredible block from Wan-Bissaka. Incredible save from De Gea. Should have scored in that game. I was gutted. I did let the side down. I'll accept it. It would have been a 14-1 winner, but very, very close. We'll get it this week. We're going for a Saturday 3 p.m. treble because there's 6 or 7 games on at 3 p.m. on Saturday. So we're going for a 3 p.m. treble. I have gone just simple Wolves to win, which I think we all back, but it's a good price. It's over evens for them to beat Watford. So yeah, Wolves to win. I just think that like I said in the preview, I think they'll come good. I think they've been very good, and I think Watford are already looking a little bit lost. Their usual problems of just having almost too many players, not really knowing what their best 11 is. So yeah, Wolves to win is the first leg.
I've gone for safety.
You have
Brentford, Brighton, both teams to score. Just trying to keep that 100% record. Don't want to try anything too fancy straight after the international break. So yeah, I've gone for a bit of a safety selection this week. What's Jonathan's?
I'm going for Arsenal to finally get off the mark and do that quite convincingly against Norwich. I don't think Norwich can defend at all. We know Aubameyang is good against Norwich, so I've gone Arsenal to win minus 1.5.
So it originally came in at 9-1, which is a decent price, and it's been boosted to 11-1. So yeah, a very good price, best price on that treble. So as ever, we'll put all of our tips in the description. They'll all go out on social media. Do get involved if you fancy them, but do obviously gamble responsibly. And hopefully we can get you some more winnings this week. I
do like there being a bit of jeopardy in the podcast, making these predictions, the meaning something. I think it adds something to the podcast. I enjoy it. Even if no one else does, at least I enjoy it. Go on, and before we shoot, let's have the trivia answer. I think I've got it, but I'll let Jonathan do the reveal because he sounded 100%.
Well, I've gone from being 100% because I know it's a long staff, but I just can't which one.
I know which one.
I remember it very clearly. It was the 6th of October 2019.
Wow.
I'll tell you afterwards why I remember that. No, I mean, I'm really not going to talk about it here. And I think it was the 71st minute, and it was hammering down with rain, and the ball popped out to one of the Longstaffs, who drove it low, and one of those skidded off the surface and went in, and Steve Bruce's Newcastle beat Solskjaer's Manchester United 1-0. I think it was Matty, but I'm not totally convinced.
Yeah. It was
Matty Longstaff. And he actually scored in both fixtures against Manchester United this season. They lost the other one 4-1. And he scored in that game as well. I don't think he scored against anyone else. And he's since gone out on loan. I think he went out on loan.
Never been seen. I
think he's gone out on loan this season. So yeah. A couple of Longstaff mentions this week, so that's nice.
Yeah, a good podcast for the Longstaff brothers. Keep them in everybody's mind. I think that does us for this week. So thanks to the guys for joining me as ever. Always a pleasure to host this podcast. Hope everyone who watches and listens has a great weekend. If you're not already subscribed with your post notifications on, if you could do that, that would be excellent. Don't forget to enter the trivia competition in the comments as well. Obviously, if you've got this far, you already know the answer, so you might as well have a go because yeah, you just might as well because you know what the answer is. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe.